As caching is inseparable part of Next.js, especially in app router, we think it's vital to have a good understanding, especially if you're building production-grade apps. We have some layers of cache. To be precise, we have 4 layers of cache in Next.js.
So instead of handling this request 5 times, we just handle it once and then memoize it, so we always return the same value.
Request memoization is not part of Next.js itself.
Yes.
Because it's part of the React core features. If you feel that you don't have a very big experience with cache, or you feel that you don't have as big understanding as you wish you would have, make sure to stay with us until the end of the episode, because we are going to also cover some nitpicks here. So yeah. Hello everybody, welcome to the Next.Gen Web podcast. In today's episode, we want to bring you closer the topic of caching in Next.js, as caching is inseparable part of Next.js and is pretty much vital to build production-grade performant apps. We think it's very important to have good understanding of caching and how it works under the hood. So as always, if you like this content, feel free to like, subscribe and leave your feedback in the comments. It is very much appreciated. So, I think we can dive straight into the topic. Today we have kind of the continuation of the deep dive tech talks. In the previous episode with tech talks, which I believe was the episode number 8.
Yes, the rendering strategies.
Yes, exactly. We were diving deep into the Next.js rendering strategies. We also mentioned some caveats from caching, but we also said that caching in Next.js is such a big topic that we are going to make a separate episode for that. So here we are. Today we want to kind of dive deeper into the caching, and when you understand some basic concepts, it's not so scary as it looks like. So maybe we can start off with telling what caching really is.
Yes, so if we'd like to be really precise with our definition, caching is just storing the data that is frequently accessed, so we can avoid refetching it again. But one of the ideas I came up with simplifying these terms is that we can imagine a situation when we are running a shop, and this shop is connected to some warehouse we have where we store some of our products, and we have a customer wants some product, let's call it product X, and we have to go from our counter to the warehouse, look for the product X, and then bring it back to the customer. And it can be done once, but if we have 50 or 100 customers and all they want product X, and each time we would have to go to the warehouse, look for this product, and then return to the customer with this product, it would take a huge lot of time. And we also need to remember that the variable in this case is, for example, the size of our warehouse or the length between our counter and the warehouse. So if you have few kilometers from there, it will be even longer. So the caching, we can simplify it to saying that it is bringing our product closer to our counter, so we don't have to refetch it again from our warehouse. So basically that's what it is, just storing the data we frequently use to not refetch it again, because it can be a really heavy operation and consume a lot of our resources, to be really nerdy with that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, like the fun fact that before the recording, I told you that the example with the warehouse and just bringing the product closer to the user was pretty much one of the best explanations of caching I've ever heard. So that's a good one, and basically that's a good overview what caching really is, because it's not a very complex topic. pretty much caching is a very simple concept, but as it's very often that the simple solutions work the best. But it's not so simple in the case of Next, because we have some layers of cache. To be precise, we have 4 layers of cache in Next.js. The first one is the request memoization. We also have the data cache, we have the full route cache, and we also have the client-side router cache. It seems a lot when you first look at it, but we're gonna dive deeper into each one, and we're gonna try to explain it in simple terms so that you can have a good understanding. And a good disclaimer here is that you don't have to be an expert in Next.js caching in order to take leverage it in your apps.
Yes.
Because Next.js pretty much makes most of the caching by default, and it caches as much as it can, basically, based on the APIs you're using. So you don't have to, know exactly what is happening in which cache layer. You can simply focus on building the performant product, and Next.js is going to take care of some of the caching itself. So a big disclaimer here. But also, if you dive deeper and have better understanding in cases when you have to optimize your app to take advantage of every millisecond, it is very good to have the basic understanding of these topics. So yeah, that would be the quick intro to caching. So as we have a lot of topics to cover today, I think we can dive right into the first type of caching, the first layer, which is the request memoization.
Right, so I can start with explaining what
Sure.
request memoization is. So basically, with Next.js, we have our basic regular fetch API from JavaScript, and then Next takes it and extends it with additional features that are meant to help us make our fetching more optimized. And that's the case with request memoization. Actually, when we are trying to describe it in simple terms, when we have a route in our application, and in this route we have multiple requests. For example, we want to fetch some data in several places in our route. The Next.js then looks at this request and looks for similarities. So, for example, we want to handle fetch from the same source with same options. That request would be memoized. So instead of handling this request 5 times, we just handle it once and then memoize it, so we always return the same value. This is really nice when you have some repetitive operations regarding fetch, but we also have to remember that it only works like this. Memoization is not shared across different routes, so this is only for this one route only. So the whole topic of revalidation in that case is going away. We will talk about revalidation more later, but just a little disclaimer. And I think the request memoization is one of the, I would say, smallest features relatively to the others we will be talking about, because it just handles multiple requests across one route.
Yeah, exactly. One big disclaimer here. Maybe we told that the request memoization is part of the Next.js caching, but big disclaimer here. The request memoization is not part of Next.js itself.
Yes.
Because it's part of the React core features.
Mm-hmm.
So this comes from React. That's a big thing to mention here.
That's a good catch.
Yeah, and basically what request memoization does for us, especially if we have the hybrid approach with both client-side and server-side rendering. Imagine a situation where we have a layout. So it would be a component which is high in the component tree. And we also have some kind of nested component which is like deeper in the component tree. And we need the same data in the layout and the same data in the component which is nested. So in the traditional SPA approach, we kind of have two options here. So the first option is using some kind of global state, some context API, Redux, Zustand, whatever you name it. Yeah, it has many names. So this is one solution, and the other solution would be the worst one, which is prop drilling, which is an anti-pattern, and we kind of want to avoid that. And request memoization comes here as a solution. So instead of having a headache and thinking how can I manage it, we simply have the fetch request in the layout, and we have exact same fetch request in the nested server component.
Yes.
And thanks to the memoization, we don't have to care about it because it handles it gracefully. And after we did the fetch once, if we request the data in the nested component, we are getting the response instantly from the cache, which is very convenient and solves a lot of headaches in the server side and the client side mixed approach.
Yes, so as we mentioned, it works with the whole route. So if we create a fetch in the top level file of our route, it will also be available in all of its children. So it's not a great headache with prop drilling when it comes to one children. It's not prop drilling yet, but after we have many layers of nested components, then such approach would be a headache for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And one thing that is very important here in request memoization is that it works with the fetch in get options. So you may ask yourself a question, okay, so I have the fetch, but for example, I have an app where we use, I don't know, graphical client, we use some database client, and I just don't want to use fetch, or I can't use fetch. So what now? So basically, as we said, it's not a feature that is strictly coming from Next.js. It is a React feature.
Yes.
So we can simply wrap these requests, for example, in the GraphQL client or the database client, we can wrap these requests in a React cache function and basically take the same advantage of the request memoization there. So don't worry if you can't use fetch, you have your own client, for example, I don't know, just some Supabase queries or just the graphical client.
Yes.
You can go ahead and have the same performance with using the React cache function here.
Yeah, I had a case actually with using Supabase provider when I was having a list of entities, let's call them clients, for example, to display them in the list, and this list was used in several places inside one route, and in such cases this would let me avoid a lot of consuming resources consuming operations with Supabase. And as we know, more queries from Supabase, the whole application gets a bit more laggy, but
exactly.
With this one we can avoid such situations, so it's really nice.
Yeah, sure. And as you said, the duration of the request memoization cache is basically the lifetime of a server request. So basically there's no need to revalidate this type of cache because if the server component re-renders, the cache is going to be flushed, so we don't have to worry about revalidating this type of caching. So I would say this is one of the easier concepts in Next.js caching. So that was the brief overview of the request memoization. And we are slowly going deeper into the caching.
Yes.
And the next one is the data cache.
The data cache.
Yeah,
right.
so I guess we're gonna spend a while here in the data cache because it's I feel very core element of the caching in Next.js. And also other layers of cache strictly depend on the data cache. So what it does basically, or maybe the main difference, just to have a better understanding from what it differs from the request memoization, would be, for example, the duration of the cache. So as we said, the request memoization only lives in a server request lifetime, and the data cache basically lives between the server renders, and also is consistent between deployments.
Yes.
So we are talking right now about more persistent type of cache, which is the main difference from the request memoization.
I have a funny story here about it, as I was starting with Next.js and wasn't as experienced as I am now. I had some case when I was fetching some key from external API, and this API key was changing repeatedly. I think the duration for that was like once a week or something like that. But I wasn't really clear about the whole cache functionality, and I was really confused when on the API side my key was changed, but in my application it was always the same. I was like thinking, why the hell is this happening, right?
Yeah.
And then I was started learning about cache and how to revalidate things. So yeah, this is also one of the cases where less experienced developers can fall into some popular trap, and that's why it is crucial to know how caching works.
Yep.
Because you are not building it from scratch. Don't worry about it. You don't have to be an expert, as you mentioned, but knowing what's going under the hood of React and Next.js and JavaScript is really helpful when things start to go not the way you would like it to go.
Oh yeah, that's very true. So if you feel that you don't have a very big experience with cache, or you feel that you don't have as big understanding as you wish you would have, make sure to stay with us until the end of the episode, because we are going to also cover some nitpicks here. So yeah, coming back to the data cache, you also mentioned topics like revalidation.
Yes.
But basically, with data cache, we have options for rendering the routes both dynamically and with the static site generation. So the data cache works both here and here. And basically, as you said, we have the revalidation, which is going to work in cases where we, for example, have the static site generation.
Yes.
And also coming back to some concepts we've mentioned in the rendering strategies. Also, if you haven't watched the episode, make sure to tune in, because we had some good insights there as well in the rendering strategies.
Yeah, it would be a great starting point
Yeah.
for the whole caching topic.
Yep.
To start from
Exactly.
the rendering strategies and then go deep dive into the
Yeah,
caching.
I feel that having good understanding of the options of rendering in Next are like kind of the basics to enter the caching, which is kind of more advanced concept. Kind of like you'd start learning TypeScript without having the basic JS knowledge. I mean,
Yes.
like you can, but basically you should, have some basics. Like you have to learn to walk before you learn to run, basically.
Right. And then you Google how to create an array in TypeScript.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Or
Always.
in Next.js.
Always, yeah. But coming back to the revalidation, so let's imagine we have a case where we have a static site generation. So what it means, we have the static HTML, which is going to be served to the browser, and you had the case with the what the hell moment is going on, like my data is stale.
Yes.
It's not changing. Why it's not changing? Well, because Next.js, as we said at the beginning, it caches as much as it can. So basically, it turned your route into the static route. So if you don't revalidate it, it's going to be stale forever, basically. So here we have two strategies. The one is the time-based revalidation, and the other one is the on-demand revalidation. So maybe we can start off with the time-based. I feel that it's like a bit easier concept to know at the beginning.
Yeah, so basically what we want to tell our application is how frequently the data should be refetched again. So this is like the most, I think, simple way of revalidation, because we just we just tell how frequent it should go in milliseconds, if I remember correctly.
Exactly.
So we can also opt out of it and use the 0 value, but then we would opt out of caching from the whole feature, and it is not really great idea in most of the cases. But if we know that, for example, once in a week we have something that changes in our data, because, for example, we are, I don't know, maybe some e-commerce site or something like that, when the changes are not maybe for the specific pages as frequent, then it would be nice to do so. And then we also have the more advanced revalidation based on path or tags, which you cover.
Yeah, I will try to do my best. But there's a very important thing in the time-based revalidation. So I think it's very well thought through. So basically what it does is, for example, we have a fetch request that have the revalidate set to, for example, 1 minute. And the first time we hit the fetch, we have the miss. We don't have the fetch response in the cache. We are setting the cache, and we have the 1 minute revalidation period.
Yes.
So what you may think is that, okay, so after 60 seconds, after 1 minute, when I fetch again, I will have to make a network request, and the user is going to have to wait for the response, and we're gonna set the cache again. But no, that's not how it works. It is for the performance optimization. So basically what it does is, after the minute, if you hit the fetch again, what Next is going to do is going to still serve the stale data, and in the background is going to fetch the data and update the cache inside. So the user always is getting the data which is being cached, which is the optimal performance solution. And also we ensure that the fresh data after revalidation is being updated in the background, which is great. And also one important thing here is that if the fetch in the background for the data basically fails, we are not going to flush the cache, but we are going to serve the previously cached data. So we always have something to display to the user, and also we are not like exposing the user to the network calls for fetch. We are also like pretty much always using the cache data. So this is very important here in the time-based revalidation. And to be honest, at first I wasn't aware that it kind of works that way, because on-demand revalidation works a bit differently. So I guess we can move to the time-based revalidation, sorry, the on-demand revalidation. Basically, as you said, we have two strategies here. One of them is the tag-based revalidation, and the other one is the path-based revalidation. So basically, in fetch requests, we are able to have the granular control over the fetches. So we can pass the specific tag to the fetch, and then we can on-demand revalidate the specific tags we want. So I guess the most popular use case here, for example, we have a headless CMS, let's say Strapi, Sanity, whatever. After the content is being updated, we want to have the fresh data on the website, like pretty obvious.
Yes.
So what we can do is basically trigger a webhook in the CMS, and the webhook is going to hit a route handler in our Next.js app, and it's going to revalidate the tags where the data changed. So we have two benefits here. One, we are not getting the stale data, and the other one is we can revalidate only the things that changed. So we are not flushing, just everything. We have the very precise control over what is being cached or not.
Yes, the one I think real world example that I remember, I was working with a website that was actually an e-commerce from the US, and we, besides e-commerce side of the application, we also had a blog with articles, and these articles were about different topics. So we had different tags for our articles. Everything was set up on Sanity CMS. So this is where we had our tag-based revalidation turned on, because every time we created a new article from the specific tag, we wanted to update the list of articles that were related to this topic. So this is something you can think about when you have a blog or some different application that uses different categories, different topics. It can be e-commerce, it can be newspaper, a lot of cases here.
Yeah, exactly. So I would say this is the brief overview of the data cache. Just remember, we can use the data cache both in static generation and also in the dynamic pages. As we said in the rendering strategies, if we use the dynamic functions in our root, which would be, for example, the cookies, the headers, or for example, we have the search params, we are automatically opting into the dynamic rendering. Basically, these are, if you have the search params, we always want to have the fresh data based on the search or on the cookie values. So this is a thing we should keep in mind within the data cache. And yeah, we are slowly moving towards the next cache layer, which is the full route cache. So with the full route cache, we are actually moving from the dynamic pages more to the static site generation.
Yes.
Because we are caching not only the data that is returned in the fetch requests, but we are basically caching HTML, the RSC payload, pretty much everything that we are going then statically serve to the browser.
That is true. This is especially helpful for applications that have a lot of pages that are not necessarily changing in time, that they don't need updates, for example, with new articles or something like that. We will be talking about cases like that later, but let's think about some static page, static application that has a lot of pages, and with single page application, like changing the views could be a little bit resource consuming, because every time you would need to do the same operation again and again. And with regular page-based application, but not like in Next.js, we would have the full refresh of the page after changing our pages. But with this full route caching, we can save the whole page, the React server component payload in our cache, and using that we can easily navigate between pages with like the SPA-like feeling, but with the whole different pages performance. So the experience for that is really nice. It's like instantly going from page to page in a native application and not a website. And yeah, the one thing that is also needs to be remembered is that, as with data cache, the duration of full route cache is like a persistent, so and shared across different requests.
Yep.
So we also need to think about revalidation.
Yeah, sure. I mean, like, that's true that it's shared between requests, but also one difference between the data cache and the full route cache is that the data cache is being shared between deployments and the full route cache is not.
Yes,
so
that's correct.
That's another important topic here. And yeah, basically, if you want to like have a good understanding here, the full route cache is always going to refer to basically the static site generation.
Yes.
And for example, you can wonder if you have like some kind of the dynamic page where we have the /product/ID. And what if I would like to make these pages static? Is it even possible? So the quick answer is yes, basically. In Next.js, we have a function called generate static params. So basically, if we want to generate the static pages here with, for example, the dynamic product slug, we can pass the array there to generate static params, and we can basically at build time generate static pages for these dynamic routes.
Yes.
Which is very handy, especially for pages like, I don't know, blog or e-commerce site.
Yes, with a lot of products.
Yeah, sure. So that is also very important. And one other thing here, you also mentioned the revalidation. So
yes.
Basically the full route cache is based on data cache. So these two are basically strictly coupled together. So
yes.
if we revalidate the data cache, we are also revalidating the full route cache. Yes. And we also mentioned that the full route cache also consists of the RSC payload. We introduced the RSC payload in the rendering strategies, but just a quick reminder, in the RSC payload we basically have three things. We have the placeholders for the client components with the reference JS file. We have the generated server components, and we also have the third component, which would be all the props which are being passed from server components to the client components. And also, you mentioned the instant navigation between the routes. And
yes.
we kind of touched the next layer of caching within that, which is the router cache.
Yes, the one thing I believe we could also mention when we are with the full route caching is to how to turn it off, because sometimes you like to do this. Not often, but sometimes there are cases like that. So one of the solutions for that would be to use dynamic functions. We can use dynamic from Next, but also we could de-opt for data cache. As you mentioned, they are coupled together. So if we turn off data cache, we also turn off full route cache. So this is one thing to remember, because if someone is not aware of it, they can turn off data cache thinking the full route cache is something different, and then everything is de-opted.
Yeah, sure. And also, if you want to opt out the fetch from caching, we can simply pass the cache no store
yes.
In our fetch, and we can explicitly tell not to cache this fetch, and effectively turning the route into the dynamic page. Okay, so it went pretty smooth, the full route cache. I guess we can go to the last layer of caching, which is the router cache, which is the client-side layer of caching in Next.js. So basically, at the first visit of a route, we are not having the router cache. And after the subsequent visiting to the pages, we are basically getting the RSC payload, which is cached in the router cache, which gives us, as you said, the instant navigation in Next.js, which is a very cool feature. And also here, we have some APIs that ensure the possibility of this router cache. So for example, if you use link from Next in your app, the default behavior of link is that it is going to prefetch the route that is defined there as href, which is one of the things that enable the instant navigation. Or basically you also have the use router where you can also prefetch the pages to ensure the instant navigation between the pages. So within the router cache, I don't know if there is something else we would like to add here.
Invalidation, for example. So basically we have two options when we are trying to invalidate our router cache. So one of them would be to use a server action. So we have just we can revalidate it tag based, for example. Or the second thing would be to use cookies for that. And I don't know if there is something more that we would like to talk about.
Yeah, sure. Maybe one more thing that comes to my mind is basically the duration of the cache. So we've told that in the data cache and in the full route cache, the caching is persistent.
Yes.
It differs a bit, but overall it is persistent. And in the case of router cache, it is not, as it's client-side cache. It is session-based. So, for example, if we refresh the page, the router cache is going to be flushed. So that's
true.
Another thing to keep in mind. And yeah, I think we've basically covered the main bullet points of the caching. For example, another nitpick that comes to my mind in caching that we also had in our projects was the usage of unstable cache. So what is unstable cache? Basically, it is a wrapper from Next.js that enable us to wrap our requests that are not using fetch. So it is kind of the very similar use case that we have with the React cache function. So with unstable cache, we can wrap our call, for example, with GraphQL client, or I don't know, just the Supabase client. And there we can also pass for example, the tags or the revalidation time, which gives us the functionalities we have from the extended fetch API. And we can use these features to have the same performance, but in fetching clients that are not strictly fetch with the get options in Next.js.
Yeah.
So this is another thing to keep in mind. I guess we can also show a quick code example how unstable cache really looks like, just to have a better reference. So basically, as we have here on the example, we are importing the unstable cache from the next cache. And we have the function which is the get cached user, which takes advantage of unstable cache. And we are basically passing the tags here, which in this case is users. We are also passing the revalidate to 60. And thanks to that, we can later on, for example, take advantage of revalidate tags to have the granular control, not only on the fetch requests, but also with functions that are being wrapped with unstable cache.
True. I think that's a great explanation for unstable cache. I don't always remember, is it like cache or cache? But I think this is the same thing with Zustand, Zustand. So a lot of pronunciations for that. Please don't butcher us if you are really into proper pronunciation.
Yep.
This can differ across people, so please don't hold it against us.
Yeah, sure.
And besides that, I think we've covered most of the core topics regarding caching in Next.js. If you are looking to increase your knowledge furthermore, be sure to check out Next documentation for that. It's really thorough and a lot of cool stuff is written in there. I hope our explanation would bring this topic a little bit closer for people that are not aware of cache or are not really comfortable with cache. It's not scary. It's something that is really important, but not that hard, I would say. And also, as you mentioned in the beginning of this episode, it's not like right now you are not using cache and you will start using it after you learned it. You are using it probably in more ways that you would imagine, but it's nice to know what's going on under the hood if something goes wrong. So yeah, this is a very important topic, especially for performance and user experience overall. If you are a developer or a business owner that is working with applications, we heavily encourage you to incorporate caching in your application. And if not, we also suggest that you can contact us and we will help you with that.
Yeah, sure. Basically, if you have any questions regarding caching, feel free to ask them in the comments. Also, if you have some caching issues, for example, in some more production grade apps, feel free to reach us out. Basically, you also mentioned that all of the caching right now, pretty much most of the caching is being made by default. And that is true as for now. But as we had the Next.js 15 release candidate, we also had information that you will have to explicitly set the caching in the pages. So it's not going to be kind of out of the box, which has its advantages and disadvantages. I would say that if you are more aware where you are using the cache and how you are using it, I think it's going to be a better change. So it kind of reminds me with the change with the use client, for example.
Mm-hmm.
You had to think if the component really needs to be client-side,
Yes.
or maybe you can do it server-side, or you can do a better component composition to move the client-side component deeper in the component tree. So just being aware of the stuff you're using and not having just a big black box of, oh my God, this is caching.
Yeah.
And it works somehow, but rather approach of, being, yes, as I said, aware and using it properly and where it needs to be used. I think this is the proper way of...
Great time to learn caching.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a good episode before the next version of the Next.js comes out. And yeah, I think we've covered pretty much every important topic in caching.
I think so, yeah.
So I guess we can slowly end up the episode. So as we said before, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. And yeah, as always, if you like the content, please like, subscribe, and yeah, see you in the next one.
See you guys.